Let's learn something really quick.
If you got the time, absolutely. And you got the discipline, there's no question about it.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great practice to put into your everyday life, you guys.
You generally regret the things you don't do, not the things you did do. Let me say it that way.
Mic drop. This was just awesome. I love meeting my guests in person, and it's a whole nother animal, and the energy is just electric. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bring you incredible guests from all over the world, so sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is a magnetic transformational coach, workshop facilitator, community consultant, former producer, and a former nomad. Please welcome Victoria Cumberbatch. Vicky, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Deanna.
Oh my gosh, we've already been just chatting away.
I know, going at it.
I love it, but you are a very fascinating person, and I love your no nonsense personality. I really like that. I really connect with people like you.
Thank you, aka Jersey Sopranos-esque. You know what I'm saying? Select or die. Yeah.
That's awesome. So the way you spell magnetic is pretty cool. Well, let's kind of get into what got you to where you are today. During COVID, you were a nomad. And I'm not sure, when did you produce this web series that is out there currently?
I produced that. I started that in 2018 and wrapped it up in probably 2020. And we were primarily in New York. After coming back from living abroad, it was, and especially to New York, it was a feeling of utter disconnection from everyone. This was during the Trump era as well, and everybody was ready to blame something other than themselves.
Yes.
As to why.
We're still there today. We're still there. It's even worse.
Absolutely right. But at that point, for me, I had been out of the country so long, it was kind of like a smack in the face. So
yeah.
I just wanted to create a way that I had grown up, which was we always had dinner at the dinner table, and everybody knew that I was friends with. They'd come to my house. My house was the spot that they could always have a meal or hang with my parents and have a different view of adults at the time. And so I named it Anderson Street, which is the street I grew up on. And my mom made a meal every time. And we filmed about 6 people around a dinner table, eating, drinking, and having discordant conversation. So a topic that was dicey on purpose.
Yeah.
To show and expose that you and I can actually have a discourse. And that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And on to the next.
Right.
We don't have to meet each other. We don't have to any of the rest. So it was very fun. We raised some funds, and inevitably everybody kind of fizzled out. Who got married, who got this, who got that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And your background, your father was a police officer, your mom was a teacher.
Boom.
I love it. Just salt of the earth type of people, huh?
Salt of the earth type of people. All the men in my family were first responders for 9/11. So that's how close we were to 9/11 at that time. Saw it in the air, smelled it, everything like that. So that's a pretty big deal for us, especially in North Jersey.
Sure. Yeah. My husband's a police officer. So, tell your father thank you for his service. I know what it's like to be with someone like that. It's not easy.
Not easy. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and then you were a nomad with your boyfriend, you traveled in your van for how long?
Traveled in the van for just a year with my now fiance. Okay. Congratulations. It remained, even though the van had to end. And that was my second foray into nomading. So I pretty much nomaded throughout all of my 20s. I'm 34. So from 2011 to 20 years.
Wow.
It was away elsewhere.
But what made you want to do that, live that kind of lifestyle?
Even though my parents are salt of the earth, the difference was my mom is the original escape artist, as I like to say, but she was always traveling. So she had a go bag next to her door, ready to rock, right? Her first trip.
Wow.
And she looks like you. She's blonde and blue-eyed. I'm biracial. So, her with long to the butt blonde hair in Kenya,
Yeah.
I don't know, in 1970. Okay.
Yeah.
So she just lived that life. So when I was born, within 4 months, we went to Turkey. And that's how it was. And so I was out of the country 2-3 times a year, every year for my life with them. So then by the time I graduated college, I was like, And it was just post recession. Oh, it was like that.
Yeah.
So couldn't get a job, like couldn't get anything. So I was like, well, I'm just going to get out of here.
Sure.
Why wouldn't I? So that first time I backpacked from Puerto Escondido, Mexico, the Pacific coastline, all the way down to Panama, and then came up around the other side. Solo, didn't know Spanish, hitchhiked, learned Spanish along the way. Like, parents were very stressed. And then I just didn't stop for a while. Then I just
Oh my God, I love you. I like my spirit animal for real.
Yeah, it was the best. I mean, but also the double-edged sword was everybody around me was getting into junior and senior positions with careers, and I hadn't started.
That wasn't your path, though.
Looking back, no, and I'm cool with it. But in the moment, I really was berating myself every step of the way. Like, why do I have to be this type of person?
Yeah.
Ugh, I keep making it harder for myself, but I'm having a great time. So it was a constant, pull and push and pull.
Sure. But I feel like this has given you a unique view on the world and on life and on people, more cultured too. I think that people that expose themselves to that kind of lifestyle are able to see things quite differently than, the actual normal day-to-day person.
My echo chamber, I didn't have one. So yeah, like everything was, whoa, these people do it this way. Wow, that's crazy, but I guess it's not. That's totally normal. You know what I mean? Like, whoa. And I mean, the biggest thing probably was in that time frame. So like 2017 to 19, I was working for a company called Remote Year. And this was at the height of be a digital nomad and travel around the world. That was that moment.
Yeah.
And so this company was the first one of that kind. And so I oversaw and traveled with a group of 50 adults.
Wow.
10 countries, 12 cities in 12 months.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And that, my friend, was about 15 years worth of work experience.
I bet.
1 year.
Good and bad, I bet.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I'll tell you by not telling you.
Correct. Like when people believe that they can just pay for a service, they often become children.
For sure. Yeah, I believe that. It makes sense to me, though, because it's kind of set you up for what you do now, like being a transformational coach, that kind of life and different cultures gives you tools that a lot of people don't have and just experience a lot more. It just makes sense to me now. Like all that set you up for what you do now. So what made you get into being a coach, workshop facilitator, and a community consultant?
Yeah. So, and thank you for that, because man, what I tell you, in my 20s, I just really battled myself. Like, who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? I do everything. I didn't know I had ADHD, which couldn't be more obvious, at this point. But at the time, I just was like, why can't I stick to anything? Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It just takes time to be able to look in the rear view and say, oh, that was the pattern that set me up for this. Like, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm surrounded by people in my life that are models of salt of the earth type stuff. So like, they got in something and they did it for 35 years.
Yeah. See,
I didn't understand. So through nomading, what I would often do is work exchange. So I would work at a hostel or something and start to create community there. Just that's what I kind of did. And so, that could have looked like, oh, we're going to have live music. So everybody come to this thing, right? It could be low level, like
cool.
And over time, I just kind of got into more community roles, which over time was like project coordinator or like account executive. And now currently community is a whole industry. So I really did that work for 12 or so years. And I include my backpacking because it gave me that additional experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And it truly was community management. It was managing people together and what that looks like and knowing the seasons of people's lives of the members of our group. If I'm working with a group of digital nomads that are primarily in their 30s and 40s, then they might be more interested in experiences and not going to the bar after work for half an hour. They might not. They may be over that. So I need to know that. So that's the sort of stuff I did. And then in the van, when I was living in the van with Dee, was very depressing. I was very depressed, and we ended up in Denver. I thought very idealistically, like, everyone's inside and we're going to be outside, so it'll be great.
Yeah, no.
It was like post riots in the Great Lakes region.
Like the apocalypse.
It was actually The Walking Dead. Okay,
yeah,
so
for sure.
I just didn't know what I didn't know, and I tend to jump in the deep end. So I was like, well, what was I thinking? And we were working together. Never again. I went down from my full-time role to consulting.
Okay.
This community, but I worked alongside him, and it was hot and it was egregious and it was abysmal, and we had no windows and like just not good. So by the time we rolled into Denver, I just was like, I actually can't do this one more second.
Yeah.
So can you hang with me? And we figure it out. So we didn't know anybody here. We didn't have any job or work here.
Yeah.
And this is our third summer. So we have remained, and it took 2 years to sell the van, and it was just like a toil. But it was in that time where I had nobody here and I just had to go inward.
Yeah.
That I went to a transformational and performance coaching program. Basically, a friend of mine said, look, you're dim. I don't know what's up, but do this thing. And I was like, whatever, credit card.
Yeah.
Because they're never cheap. And
no, they're not.
No, they're not. And I friggin' hated it. Yeah. Like, let's be real, because I was being shown me the whole time.
It's
hardcore. Like,
yeah.
I really thought I did the work, and I hadn't been. I'd been like faking it. And people were calling me out, and I had to really become accountable and know what accountability meant and responsibility meant. Like,
yeah,
having the capacity to respond, not having to hold the burdens of others. I didn't know. And it was there that I thought, wow, I think I'd be really good at this though.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a ton from it. At that time, I graduated, and I got all these downloads. Like, you need to be speaking, use your voice, figure out workshop. I was getting full workshops minute by minute. How I couldn't get it down. It was crazy. And I've never had that happen. So that was when I was like, maybe I'll do workshop facilitation, and like got a certification because I need to be worth it, society says. And just followed the cookie crumbs. Ended up going back and doing service with them, which meant I was a coach.
Okay.
So I got to see behind the veil.
And
I was like, oh, okay. So this is what's really going on behind the scenes. This is why this shit works.
Yeah.
In a way that I absolutely abhorred when I was in it. But it works if you work it. Right. So it was at that time I thought I need to be a coach. And I wonder how I do that. Yeah. And then called people, informational interviews, got certified, got credentialed, yada, yada. Yeah. And ended up at this point. So, I mean, that's a really truncated version, but at the end of the day, it was following the cookie crumbs.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you kind of let life just flow, huh?
I'm glad that it looks that way. In my mind, it doesn't feel that way.
No, and yeah,
it does.
I can agree. Like, my path is not linear either,
right.
And I've questioned a lot of things. And
right.
when I listen to your story being in the 20s, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have traveled like that when I was in my 20s, but I was too busy being in abusive relationships, partying my ass off with drugs, and overcoming being a human trafficking victim. So it's like all that brought me to where I am today. Like, I couldn't be having this show talking about living label free and stepping out of your limiting beliefs and just like living your life on your own terms if I hadn't gone through all that stuff, right? I wouldn't have this story that has set me up for success now in wanting to inspire, encourage, motivate, and all these different things.
Absolutely. And it's the story, it's you being authentic, utilizing what we have here to inevitably you become magnetized simply by showing up, right? There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Full circle.
Well, why magnetic? Why is it like that?
People that have friction or what have you, I always thought about the opposite ends of the magnet, where you like can't get those pieces to touch no matter what, and they're like, ugh. But when it fits, it is full alignment, like puzzle pieces. And I actually didn't have to do anything. I was being. So that was the bigger thing that I learned in my programs is be, do, have.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the basis of transformational work, which is who are you being? How are you showing up? And then life will mirror at you
Yeah.
that which you are putting out. Whether you want to believe that or not, it is simply the capital T truth. So if that is the case, then let me ensure my vessel and my mind and everything is as tip top as I can make it so that I can be a magnet.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I thought about it.
I love it. Well, I talked to a lot of coaches on the show, and a lot of people say, oh, the coaching industry is so crowded, but every single coach I talk to is so unique in what they do. And there's enough business out there for everyone.
I agree.
And I feel like there is a need, and it's necessary for a lot of people these days to seek out a coach that is going to be in alignment with where they're trying to go, or this, what they're trying to reach or trying to uncover, and someone could work with you. They reach their goals with you. Then they might be like looking for something else. They could find another coach to reach that, because it could be two different things, right?
Yes.
So I'm a certified life coach, and I'm working with someone right now that wants me to become, that thinks that I'd be a great confidence coach specifically for women because of how I show up for myself. And I'm like, yeah, I could add that to my resume. I've got the credentials. I've gone through this training. And I think that is something, the way I show up is very different. I'm very confident, but also vulnerable at the same time. From what I hear, I don't know that that's very rare. And I'm just like, I don't see it that way. Like you probably don't see things, but I appreciate the feedback. So with that being said, who is your ideal client? Who is seeking to find you and what you can offer them?
Yeah. Thank you for framing it that way, because who I thought would be my ideal client is a little different than who is magnetized to me. That has been a really interesting thing, because, you go through the training and then you're like, this is my avatar. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to make it up as I go. And then it doesn't always, I think, end up being what you thought you wanted, but maybe it is what you needed. So who that has ended up being, it ends up being neurodivergent women, typically in one of their Saturn returns. It's just ended up being that way. So like in the late 20s, early 30s moment of turmoil, and then again, over here in that kind of retired, my kids are moving out, maybe getting divorced moment. So I do have these two pretty big pillars, clients. And it's never been, I don't want to work with men. It just, they're not attracted to me in that way.
I think you've got a very strong personality for women that might be a little bit lost. So you help guide them to find their way. And that just makes sense to me. I can see that for sure.
Yeah. I call them pivoteers, becoming a pivot master.
And what do you mean when you say neurodivergent? What does that mean for the audience?
Sure. So for the audience, that might mean ADHD, autistic, dysgraphic, any neurological diagnosis, or you believe that you have been misdiagnosed in the way that you executively function throughout the world.
And I look at it as gifts. A lot of the neurodivergent people have incredible gifts and skills.
Absolutely. So that is what ends up happening, is that also either of these areas tend to be those that are newly diagnosed. And now this new diagnosis means something. And we choose to create meaning. So it doesn't actually have to mean anything, right? So
you don't have to own that label.
Right, exactly. So you don't. If you do choose, let's talk through what that means, because you get to create your meaning. Humans are meaning-making machines. We're going to create the meaning. So it doesn't mean, right, it's not that you're slow. It's not that you're fast. It's that you move the way that works best for you. So best that you know, so that you can let others know how to work best with you. Because we live in a world where everyone, pale, stale male, okay, the cadre that we're waiting to retire, they will not hesitate to say to you, well, this is what works for me.
Right.
Well, hey, then I guess that's going to work for us all. And we've just allowed that. I mean, of course we have. That's been the status quo. So we get to change that status quo, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that you have that viewpoint and that you are able to work with people like that and help them discover their gifts. Yeah. Not their weaknesses, as a lot of people would want to label that as.
Correct. Absolutely.
And you just came back from a training yourself with the somatic. I want to bring that up because I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's a great another tool for you in your tool belt to help people.
Yes.
What was it called again?
Somatic alignment.
Yes. And
Yes.
what does that do?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, somatic alignment was founded by this guy named Santiago. He's Colombian, and he'd been doing body work for 10 or 11 years and created this style, which I would just say, if you want to visualize it, it's like Reiki, so energy work, and then acupressure, where we're using the body meridians, the organs to do precise hands-on body release work. So it can be uncomfortable, but essentially what it does is, like most other somatic experiencing modalities, it allows the body, which again, and many don't know this, 80% of the threat comprehension we receive is through the body, not through our mental thinking. Okay? So that means the hairs matter. Our skin temperature matters. We start to get a pain, it matters. Someone walks through the door behind us, we haven't even seen them, and we feel something's not right. We've felt that before. That's your body talking. We've lived in a world where suppression and repression is top. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say we both grew up in households where our guardians did not know how to manage their own emotions.
Correct. Yes.
Have healthy conflict or model behavior that was like, oh, this is how you get through.
Right. No, definitely did not have that. It's very abusive. So I got a lot of trouble from that.
Right. So at a fucking bare minimum, that's most of us. Men, women, I don't care. Don't even talk about the conception trauma, pregnancy trauma, miscarriage trauma. I mean, just with women alone, it's paramount. Energy and motion, emotion, if we don't even recognize that we have these pings, they're going to be stuck and stagnant in our body. And over time, like my mom, very much my opinion, she had a very, very big, so big that it was starting to cause a hole in her skin mass just above where they checked with the mammogram. So it wasn't quite breast cancer, but it was above the heart. And for me, oh man, that is physical manifestation of
I agree.
Anger,
guilt,
shame, these heavy, and it can be that, it can be autoimmune disease. Just look at so many people now more than ever. Yes, autism. Yes, neurodivergence. Autoimmune for women most of the time. Infertility and hormonal issues.
Yeah.
Those are all high cortisol issues. High cortisol means we're not getting the energy out of our body. We're maintaining.
Yeah.
So even if you're just putting dots together.
Yeah.
Even if you're just putting dots together, it's like, let me release this. You can release it with the support of another person, which would be me hands-on, literally watching energy release. And it might look like you start to do this.
Yeah.
You might cry, you might breathe differently, you might swallow, you might cough, choke, burp.
I'd probably cry and scream and all kinds of stuff. That's how I think.
Your body will body.
Yeah.
Your body will body. And finally, it will be allowed. And so over time, what people will tend to notice is they're more limber. They may lose a ton of weight because fat is a protective device.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it is mentally put on to protect us, and we live to protect or connect. And if connection feels terrifying, we're going to protect.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. And I
know.
Agree more. I've never heard that, but I totally agree. Vicky, this is a part of the show where I like to ask, like, where people can connect with you, work with you, learn more, and all that stuff. Because I think if you are listening and you are like vibing with this woman right here, go to freaking Denver.
Right.
Get on a plane, go to Denver, and let her like release all that trauma for you.
Right.
Out.
Yeah, let's work together. Thank you. Okay, so I do coach virtually, and I do hold body doubling sessions virtually. So you can find all about that on my website, Adventures of Community. And then, yes, I'm in Denver where I hold in-person somatic alignment and breathwork events.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And what's the website and maybe social media?
Yep. Adventures of Community is all the things.
Okay. All the things. Excellent.
Yep.
All right. You guys, I'm going to put that link in the show notes. And I'll put her Instagram and stuff too. So if you connect with Vicky, go click the link, go give her a follow, reach out if you have any questions. And if you're interested in working with her, obviously don't be scared. She would be happy to.
Right.
Very social. Okay. So here we go. She's backpacked. She's seen the world, all the good things.
Right.
Vicky, time for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
Yeah, I really love to leave with everyone the idea of be, do, have. So as opposed to the current model, which is do more, have more, and then I'll be a millionaire, for example.
Yeah.
Why don't we show up with what a millionaire might show into the room with? And what might that be? Confidence, I don't know, flow, ease.
Yeah.
Yes, of course I get to take up space. Why wouldn't I? And then the rest surely do follow. And maybe not your time, but at divine time.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. I love that. I think that when you decide
Yes.
to become and be like that, everything else follows. And it's just
That's right.
just flows right into your life. Vicky, what a pleasure. Amazing energy, just beautiful. And your story makes sense. And it is
Thank
like
you.
you are exactly where you're supposed to be. So thank you for all you do. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Deanna. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.